I've had leading up to the NFL draft, Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin and Jimbo Fisher and Mac Brown, just to name 4 college coaches. By the way, I'm not just name dropping. I'm just pointing out that I had these folks on prior to the draft, asked them all about this subject. Every last one of them said that there's no rules and that it's not fair. Mac Brown even said he had a player come in and said, hey, I've been offered this much at another school. You match it, I'm coming here. So shouldn't there be some sort of rules around the NIL deal, or you just think it should be free market, just go for it, everybody? Jay?
Well, absent agreement with the players collectively, whether through a trade association or some sort of collective bargaining with the union, what rules can you put in that aren't going to run afoul of federal antitrust law? Like, do any of these coaches, feel similarly when an assistant comes in and says, "Hey, look, I got an offer from another school for more money, and if you can match it, great. If not, I'm going to take this offer." They call that business. When a player does it, the coaches aren't used to it. They've ruled with an iron fist for all this time, and they've basically had a free ride with regard to players. And they don't have that anymore. But you never saw these coaches say, well, wait a minute, put the brakes on. We can't build these facilities here at our place because that's going to give us an advantage over some of these other schools. Or I'm not sure we should be flying private when some of these other schools have to bus to games. And I don't think I should make this much money because other coaches aren't being paid this much, and that's an advantage. It's ridiculous. And the whole thing's kind of laughable when you look at it in the broader business context. I get it. Like, if I didn't have to pay my employees, I'd be pretty happy with things. But sadly, you actually have to pay your employees, and that's the way the world works. And for all the coaches that say now, and look, I love these guys. I mean, I'm friends with them, and we just happen to differ on this issue. But when they say, this isn't what it's supposed to be about, this is supposed to be about education and mentoring young people and making them into better adults and all that stuff. Okay, if that's what you think it's about, the doors to Division II and Division III are wide open, and coaching in high school, wide open. There's nothing that's stopping anybody from doing that if that's what you think it's really about. But people say that this is a transformational time, that we've never had this much upheaval, and that's simply not true. And you and I, Rich, have talked about this. In 1984, all the schools sued the NCAA when the NCAA was telling them how often they could be on television. They couldn't cut their own media rights deals, things like that. And they went to the Supreme Court, and the schools won. And now they could bundle all their TV rights with their conference. And Notre Dame could sell them individually. And the money went through the roof, and coaches were paid millions. Strength coaches are paid $750,000 and higher. And nobody said, wait a minute, this isn't what it's supposed to be about. It's a multi-billion-dollar entertainment industry that's run off college campuses. And the idea that we can do this and the essential workers, being the players, are gonna remain unpaid is laughable. And the Supreme Court laughed the hardest in the Alston case when Justice Kavanaugh, in a concurring opinion, said, in any other business, the way the NCAA restricts athletes would be per se illegal. And they're not going to get away with it anymore. And what that was really saying is, don't bring these lame arguments up here next time, because you're going to lose again. And lower courts are going to see that, and they've read it. And I don't think the NCAA is going to fare very well in future antitrust cases when they're trying to restrict athlete compensation. Look, the coaches are dealing with the transfer portal now. They've never had to deal with that. And they're dealing with the players that are making decisions now with money as a factor. It's not the only factor, but money's now a factor, and it was never a factor before. And they've not had to deal with that. Well, guess what? You've got to deal with it now. And that's just the way it is. And they can complain about it. I get the complaints, but pretty soon they're going to stop complaining, and they're going to start figuring out how to deal with it, because this isn't going anywhere.
So then what's the impediment, Jay Bilas? I mean, you're describing a totally broken dam and the D1 board of directors with a sandbag out there as the dam has totally broken. I mean, the president of the University of Georgia is the chair of the board, and I'm sure they've got enough lawyers to tell them what time it is in the same way that you are. What's the impediment here? Mark Emmert's leaving. What do you think, Jay?
Well, impediment to what?
To implementing what you're talking about. Just saying, realize what time it is and come up with a system and a unionization process and contracts and some sort of uniformity that makes this somewhat of a level playing field for some people, as opposed to catch as catch can. Like what do you think?
Well, there are a couple things. Well, first of all, the reason they're not doing it is they don't want to, because they know that the players are worth more than they are, and so asset allocation and money toward procuring talent is going to be funneled differently than it is now. Right now, it's funneled to coaches and administrators and for facilities and all these other things. And they know that model's going to change, and talent procurement is going to take even more money, and it's going to take money away from other things. And the NCAA structure, they look at that as their money, like that's our money. They don't look at it as the athlete's money. Where it should be, Rich, and where I think it's ultimately headed in this, but when everybody wraps their head around it, is just simply signing players to contracts. It's ludicrous to believe that these institutions and the coaches and all that, they know exactly whom to recruit and exactly whom to put in the game when they want to win. But they don't know how much the players are worth to them. They know exactly what they're worth. And they make decisions on what to pay employees every day at these schools, and they have tens of thousands of employees at each one of these institutions, and they're not sitting up at night going, what do we do? What do we pay the president versus the head of food service? Because both of them work really hard. In fact, the food service head works harder than the president, and sweating over those pots and pans, and that's unfair. And if the NCAA was really worried about a level playing field, we don't have one now, by the way. If they were really worried about that, there'd be spending caps on facilities and there'd be revenue sharing. And there's none of that. All of these institutions are market competitors against one another. They're market competitors for talent, whether players or coaches or administrators. They're market competitors for media rights dollars, and they're certainly market competitors, when they play against one another. They're all trying to win the most, make the most money, and advance their institutions through the use of athletics. They're all trying to do that. And so, how is it that we could say, well, it needs to be fair with regard to athletes only? That's the only area of this business we're going to have a spending control. Everything else, free market, do whatever you want. It's an absurd notion. And, the Supreme Court finally said so. It took the legal system a while to catch up to the fiction that the NCAA has put out all these years. But now they're having to deal with it. And look, do I think that this thing by the board of directors is going to work? No. You're not going to stop the flow of money in this. It's not going to happen. And people can say, hey, we shouldn't be building these facilities. We shouldn't be flying private. We shouldn't be playing 9 o'clock games in the middle of the week. Every game shouldn't be on television. They can all say that, but they're all doing it. And I used to laugh when administrators or coaches would say to me, how can these games be on at 9 o'clock? And I would say, look, respectfully, we don't tell you when to play your games. You can play all of them at noon on Saturday if you want to. All we said to you was we'll pay more for 9 o'clock on Tuesday than we will for 1 o'clock on Saturday. And you said, okay, we'll play on Tuesday. That sounds great. We didn't force them. Media companies don't force these schools to play at certain times. They offer them more money to play then, and they agree to it. We don't force the coaches to do halftime interviews. It's in the contract. We pay them money to do that, and they said yes. And then they want to complain, well, I don't want to do an interview at halftime. Well, we don't care whether you want to do it or not. You agreed to it, and we paid you for it. That's sort of the way this stuff works, and somehow college sports acts like everybody's impinging upon their rights here, and nobody is. And again, like if any of these schools, if Ohio State decides this is not for us, they can play in Division II or Division III, and we can have the Buckeyes versus Amherst at the Shoe for free admission and no TV, and see how Buckeye fans like that. I don't think they'll like it, and I don't think they'll stand for it. But everybody can talk all they want to, but their actions show that they want to participate in this multi-billion-dollar entertainment industry run off their college campus. But they just don't want to pay their employees, being the players, and that's just not going to work.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.